You think Atlantis is just a myth, a fictional story Plato invented to make a philosophical point. But what if Atlantis was real? What if an advanced civilization did exist and was destroyed in a single catastrophic day and night? The search for Atlantis has obsessed explorers, archaeologists, and researchers for over 2,000 years, from ancient Greece to modern satellite imaging. Today we're diving deep into the Atlantis mystery, examining Plato's original account, exploring the leading theories about where it might have been, and analyzing the scientific evidence that suggests Atlantis wasn't myth at all. Let's explore the evidence, the ancient texts, the archaeological discoveries, and the geological catastrophes that might explain the world's most famous lost civilization. The story of Atlantis comes from one source, the Greek philosopher Plato, writing around 360 BC in two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. Plato claims the story came from Solon, the legendary Athenian lawmaker who traveled to Egypt around 590 BC and heard it from Egyptian priests. According to the priests, Atlantis existed 9,000 years before Solon's time, which would place it around 9600 BC, right at the end of the last ice age. Here's what Plato describes. Atlantis was a massive island larger than Libya and Asia combined, located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. The island had a sophisticated civilization, a powerful naval empire that conquered much of Europe and Africa, with advanced technology, magnificent architecture, and immense wealth. The capital city was circular, with alternating rings of land and water, connected by bridges and tunnels. The center had a golden temple to Poseidon. The Atlanteans had hot and cold running water, massive walls covered in precious metals, advanced agriculture with 2 harvests per year, a powerful navy with 1,200 ships. But the Atlanteans became corrupt, greedy, morally degenerate. They forgot the divine wisdom that originally guided them. So the gods decided to punish them. Zeus called a council of the gods, and Plato's account abruptly ends without revealing their decision. But we know what happened. In a single day and night of misfortune, violent earthquakes and floods occurred. Atlantis sank into the ocean and disappeared. Plato describes this as historical fact, not allegory, not myth. He claims this actually happened, that Atlantis was real. Most scholars dismiss this as fiction, a story Plato invented to illustrate his philosophical ideas about the ideal state and moral corruption. But here's the problem: Plato was extremely precise in his details. He gives specific measurements, geographical locations, architectural descriptions. Why would Plato invent such elaborate details? If it was just a philosophical parable, why not keep it vague and symbolic? And why claim it came from Egyptian priests? Why not just present it as his own creation? Some researchers think Plato preserved a genuine historical memory, passed down through generations, distorted by time but rooted in real catastrophic events. Let's examine the leading theories about where Atlantis might have actually been. The most popular theory: Atlantis was Santorini, the Greek island that exploded in a massive volcanic eruption around 1600 BC. Santorini was home to the Minoan civilization, one of the most advanced Bronze Age cultures, with sophisticated cities, indoor plumbing, beautiful art. The volcanic eruption was catastrophic. It destroyed the island center, created tsunamis that devastated the Mediterranean, buried cities under ash. The Minoan civilization never fully recovered. Within a generation, their major cities were abandoned, their culture collapsed. This fits Plato's description: an advanced island civilization destroyed in catastrophic volcanic disaster. But there are problems. Santorini is inside the Mediterranean, not beyond Gibraltar. The timeline is wrong, 1600 BC versus Plato's 9600 BC. And Santorini didn't sink, it exploded. The remaining island is still there, you can visit it today. Supporters argue Plato got the details wrong. maybe the Egyptian priests confused dates, maybe Atlantis was actually Santorini but the story became exaggerated. But if we're going to change Plato's details, why believe any of it? Why not just admit it's fiction? The second major theory, Atlantis was in the Atlantic Ocean, exactly where Plato said it was, beyond Gibraltar. Some researchers point to the Azores, a group of islands in the mid-Atlantic. They claim these are the mountain peaks of sunken Atlantis. Geological surveys show underwater plateaus, suggesting much larger land masses existed there in the past, now submerged. The Bimini Road off the Bahamas, underwater rock formations that some claim are ancient harbor ruins, though geologists say they're natural. The problem is plate tectonics. We know the Atlantic Ocean floor is spreading, not sinking. Large landmasses don't just disappear. Any island in the Atlantic during the Ice Age would still be there today. Land doesn't vanish without geological explanation. Unless the catastrophe was so violent that it completely destroyed the island, breaking it apart, scattering the pieces. Some researchers invoke asteroid impact. What if a massive space rock hit Atlantis, instantly obliterating it? The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis suggests comet fragments hit Earth around 10,900 BC, causing climate chaos, mass extinctions, the end of the Ice Age. Could one of these impacts have destroyed Atlantis, creating the catastrophe Plato describes? The timeline would fit. 9,600 BC is right in the middle of the Younger Dryas period, when the world was experiencing dramatic changes. But there's no crater, no clear impact site in the Atlantic, no smoking gun proving Atlantis was destroyed this way. The third theory is the most fascinating. Atlantis was the Richat structure in Mauritania, the eye of the Sahara. This is a massive circular formation, 25 miles in diameter, visible from space, located in the Sahara Desert. It looks like a bullseye, with concentric rings of rock formations, matching Plato's description of Atlantis's circular capital. Here's what's amazing. The Richat structure's dimensions closely match Plato's measurements, the rings are the right size, the overall structure fits. The location seems wrong, it's in the middle of the Sahara Desert, not near the ocean. But wait, during the Ice Age, the Sahara wasn't a desert, it was lush and green with rivers and lakes. This period is called the African Humid Period. The Richat structure would have been near water, possibly even on the coast of an ancient sea or massive lake. Around 900 BC, dramatic climate changes turned North Africa into desert, lakes dried up, rivers disappeared, the region became uninhabitable. If Atlantis was the Richat structure, the catastrophe wasn't sinking into the ocean, it was environmental collapse, turning paradise into wasteland. The geological evidence supports this. The Richat structure shows water erosion, suggesting it was once surrounded by water, not desert. Ancient maps seem to show it. The Piri-Reis map from 1513 depicts Africa with surprising accuracy. Some researchers claim it shows the Richat structure. But there's a problem. Plato says Atlantis sank into the ocean, the Richat structure is still there on dry land. Supporters argue, Plato or the Egyptian priests got confused, the catastrophe was desertification, not submersion, the story became distorted over 9,000 years. The fourth theory, Atlantis was in Antarctica. This sounds crazy, but some researchers point to the Piri-Reis map again, which shows Antarctica without ice. How could a 1513 map show Antarctica ice-free, unless it was based on ancient maps from when Antarctica wasn't frozen? Could Atlantis have been in Antarctica, before the Ice Age, when the continent was habitable? The problem is timing. Antarctica has been frozen for millions of years, there's no period in human history when it was ice-free. Unless Antarctica was habitable during a brief warm period, or ancient civilizations existed much earlier than we think. But there's no archaeological evidence, no ruins, no artifacts, nothing suggesting advanced civilization in Antarctica. The fifth theory is the most radical. Atlantis wasn't one place, it was a global maritime civilization. This theory suggests there was an advanced seafaring culture during the Ice Age, with settlements around the world. When the Ice Age ended, sea levels rose 400 feet, drowning coastlines worldwide, destroying this maritime civilization. Atlantis represents the collective memory of multiple sunken cities, compressed into one legendary story. This would explain why flood myths appear in every culture, why underwater ruins are found worldwide, why the story feels universal. The evidence includes underwater structures off Japan, India, the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, all suggesting ancient coastal cities now submerged. But mainstream archaeology rejects this. They say there's no evidence of advanced global civilization before recorded history. Yet more discoveries keep emerging. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, built 11,000 years ago, suggesting sophisticated culture before agriculture. Maybe Atlantis wasn't a specific place, but a way of life, a lost period of human development erased by catastrophic climate change. Let's look at what Plato got right, that we can verify archaeologically and geologically. First, catastrophic sea level rise did occur, around 10,000 to 7,000 BC, as the Ice Age ended, coastlines were drowned worldwide. Any coastal civilization from that period would be underwater now, their ruins buried under hundreds of feet of ocean. Second, advanced civilizations did exist earlier than previously thought. Göbekli Tepe proved sophisticated construction 11,000 years ago. The idea that civilization began 5,000 years ago is outdated. We keep finding older and older evidence of human sophistication. Third, ancient cultures did have extensive trade networks, obsidian from Anatolia found in Mesopotamia, shells from the Red Sea in the Sahara. The idea of isolated primitive tribes is wrong. Ancient peoples traveled vast distances, shared knowledge, built networks. Fourth, Egypt did preserve ancient knowledge. Their priests kept records going back thousands of years. They were historians of the ancient world. When Plato says Egyptian priests told this story, it's plausible. Egypt had access to information lost everywhere else. So what's the truth about Atlantis? Was it real or myth? Here's the most likely scenario. Atlantis represents a collective cultural memory of catastrophic sea level rise at the end of the Ice Age. Between 12,000 and 7,000 years ago, hundreds of coastal settlements were drowned as seas rose 400 feet, entire civilizations vanished underwater. These stories were passed down, through oral tradition, over thousands of years, eventually reaching Egyptian priests who told Greek visitors. By the time Plato wrote it down, the details had become confused, dates exaggerated, locations unclear, but the core truth remained. There was an advanced civilization, or multiple civilizations, living on now submerged coastlines, destroyed by rising seas. Whether it was literally called Atlantis, whether it had the exact features Plato describes, we may never know. But the catastrophe was real. The drowning of the Ice Age world is geological fact. Civilizations that existed then are underwater now. The search for Atlantis continues, with new technologies like LiDAR and underwater sonar revealing hidden structures. Off the coast of Cuba, underwater formations that look like pyramids and roads, though mainstream archaeology disputes this. In the Mediterranean, dozens of submerged ancient cities discovered, proving that coastal settlements were indeed drowned. Off India's coast, the city of Dwarka mentioned in Hindu texts, found underwater exactly where the epic said it would be. Every year brings new discoveries, of underwater ruins, of sophisticated ancient structures, of civilizations older than we believed possible. Maybe Atlantis was Santorini, maybe it was the Richat structure, maybe it was Antarctica, maybe it was everywhere. The power of the Atlantis story, isn't whether every detail is literally true, it's that it preserves memory of a real catastrophe. It reminds us that civilizations can be destroyed, that advanced cultures can vanish, that history is written by survivors. It warns us that moral corruption leads to destruction, that hubris angers the gods, that we must maintain wisdom and virtue. And it proves that the ancients knew things we're only now rediscovering, that history is deeper than we imagine, that civilization is older than we admit. The next time someone dismisses Atlantis as pure fantasy, remind them that Troy was considered myth until Schliemann found it. Remind them that underwater ruins keep being discovered, that ancient civilizations were more advanced and widespread than previously believed. Maybe we haven't found Atlantis yet, but that doesn't mean it wasn't real, it means we're still looking. Tomorrow we're exploring another lost city mystery, El Dorado, the legendary city of gold that Spanish conquistadors died searching for.